Welcome to the Star Turqouise Mine in beautiful Cripple Creek, Colorado. Over the next 30 minutes, Clint Cross will take us on a journey through the process of mining one of the most rare and valuable stones in the world. We will get to see the turquoise cut, cleaned, polished, and set into a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry.
Started here today by giving thanks for our precious gift. What we did when we first started is we took the overburden off. We always mine by hand. We do not mine with heavy equipment because of ruining the turquoise. So it's very important to remove the overburden. Your veins normally run parallel to the earth. This way here, when you abstract the overburden off the top, then you're able to take and get down to the vein and abstract it with your picks and your chisels, which you're getting bigger pieces of turquoise out. You're not face mining on the turquoise. This way here you're able to get larger pieces, and it's much easier to abstract the turquoise if you get down to the vein. So what we're looking at here in the rock today is a decomposed granite. It's also run in feldspar, which is pretty rare in the turquoise pit. But if you look at the wall, you can kind of see whites and yellows, and you can see dark browns as well. The whites and yellows that you're looking at is your sulfides that are running with your aluminum phosphate, which is your main component of turquoise. It's a second sedimentary deposit. So normally when we get into the whites, we follow that down because it always runs into gem turquoise. So what I'm mainly concentrating on here in this wall, you can see the really dark brown, and if you look at different areas, you can see blacks and darker browns. That's actually, if you look where it's running straight down into the ground, 4 to 5 different volcanic activities happened here in the caldera of Cripple Creek. So when the earth opened up, it dispersed the heat, gas, and pressure up through the earth from the volcanic activity, which of course, so the Smithsonian says, you know, it most likely had something to do with the extreme hardness of the turquoise that we're able to mine out here today. Of course, like any turquoise pit, all of the turquoise is not gem. A lot of it's soft and should be stabilized, but we do not keep any of that material. That is what we consider leverite. We leave it right on the ground where we found it. So this way here, after we're done tumbling, we're sure that what we have is a gem quality turquoise and 100% natural, which is very important to us given my tribal history. You know, I feel that it's a sacred stone, and it was our blessing and our sky stone, also our given stone, and it brought peace amongst all of our tribes through trade. So for me, it's very important. But the strata in the earth is very nice because you can see an alluvial deposit. When this earth was 40 to 100 feet taller than what it was, it actually carried veins of turquoise in the dirt down and settled in the dirt. So amongst the veins that are settling in the decomposed granite and fractured hard rock here on the wall, you'll actually find turquoise in the dirt, which tells you at some point in time, millions of years ago, between the Great Flood and different volcanic activities, glaciers, it actually carried the veins down and separated them and dispersed it throughout the dirt. So in this mine, there's actually turquoise that comes from the very surface all the way down into the mine. So far, we've never found the end of it, and we probably never will the way we're digging. A lot of people make the mistake of using heavy equipment to mine turquoise. You cannot use heavy equipment for the purpose that when you're digging in with a backhoe and you're using a bucket, what you're doing is actually burying up veins of turquoise that most likely are going to be gem quality. They run in and out from soft to powder to gem. In about every turquoise mine, you will finally find something that's hard enough to actually be able to call gem turquoise with no stabilizations if you just dig. For thousands of years, my people have actually, when I say my people, I mean the indigenous people, including parts of our tribes, which on Blackfoot and Iroquois. We've actually found arrowheads that are Iroquois and Blackfoot here on the mine recently. So, you know, given it's our sky stone, our people would come here and use it for trade. And it brought peace amongst all of our tribes through trade. But this ground, to me, if something happens, it goes back to my tribe. So this way here, it's protected once again. Also, they used to collect the stone here and they put it in leather sacks with other rocks and do their hundreds of miles of travel by foot or by horse. It would tumble naturally with the rock, and then when they got there it was ready for trade. It had been tumbled naturally, and then of course the other people would be able to see the quality of the stone and the color of the stone. So the stone from this mine, which we have lots of literature on, actually made it thousands of miles from this area, which is pretty incredible. A lot of people don't realize this is one of the great buffalo hunts about 20 miles from here, and that was over in Hartselle, and it's a 300-mile radius that all tribes would gather for the great hunt of the buffalo here in Wyoming. So the land throughout this area was very, very indigenous at one time before the white man started gold mining here in Cripple Creek. So once we leave the pit here today, we're going home to tumble a stone in the mixer. So hopefully we'll be able to get you joined in to watch us get this material tumbled up and see what comes out of it after we get done tumbling it. We're back in beautiful fluorescent sunny day after the cold morning, and now we're going to take and we're going to tumble the stone that we mined today. Why we tumble the turquoise is decipher what's gem and what isn't, and to clean the rock as clean as possible. That way there, if we do sell rough, when you cut the rough, you end up with a beautiful cut. The stone's not going to break, it's not going to fracture, it's not going to fall apart. So now I'm going to dump the bucket into the concrete mixer. Nothing up my sleeve, okay? So now we're gonna start putting some water in her. And that way there, we get a good slurry going with all the rock and the gem rock. So while it's tumbling, the gemstone will actually take the softer rock and disperse it into pretty much a liquid. And then it'll disperse out onto the ground, and what's left after we tumble will become our gems that we're either gonna facet cut and set in gold or silver. Oh, she's cold. And there she goes. And if you can hear that sound in the concrete mixer of the hardness of the stone on the metal, that sounds like pretty good stone. Whenever you hear that sound or a click when you're mining with your pick in the vein, you know you got some pretty good material. All of it's not going to be, so out of that bucket we might end up with a few pounds, which is always still just as good because of the gem quality. Although turquoise is less than 3% in the world for natural today, gem quality is less than 1% in the world. So gem quality turquoise is very rare. Turquoise is the only gemstone in the world that has always risen. Back in 1960, Sleeping Beauty, Morenci, Kingman, and the old miners that used to work there, you could buy a lunchbox special is what they called it, and you were able to purchase that for $50. And that would estimate it about 10 to 15 pounds inside that little box because of the density of the gemstone. Today, if you were to purchase something like that, it'd probably run you between $20,000 and $30,000 in the rough because of the gem quality, but that gives you an idea of how rare gem turquoise actually is today. As a kid, we all collected rocks. I started in Vermont. I found gold by fluke. Of course, to our people, it was a yellow stone that caused a lot of heartache. I was scared of it and never went back after it, and didn't know what anybody was going to do, so I left it. Then later on in years, after living in Louisiana, wanting to get out of the heat and humidity, I did trail riding, had my own business, did a lot of fishing. Came to Colorado and looking to purchase BLM land for horses, horseback riding, gold panning, and fishing. And ended up with my horses, but not the BLM. Later ran into a fella that had a turquoise mine where we mine today. My people have collected, when I say my people, I mean a lot of indigenous tribes have collected stone here for thousands of years before gold mining ever started in Cripple Creek. So we want to give back, we want to do what's right and do something special and keep what we're doing unique and different compared to everyone else. Turquoise throughout our tribes is known as our sky stone. Our sky stone is very special to us. It was a gift from the Great Spirit to our tribes that brought peace amongst all of our tribes through trade because of its healing powers. It had a high energy. And of course it is our sky stone. And it's also the December stone. And a lot of people say, why the December stone? Well, it was such a gift that was given to us. Our people thought it would be good to give back as a Great Spirit, which was baby Jesus, was born. And that falls into the Lakota and the dream catcher, and how the dream walker went to Mother Mary and presented her the eagle feather, which was a gift. And although in that dream he saw men of many different colors and different races, and of course, you know, wearing a loincloth and nothing else and presenting the eagle feather, they looked at him very weird, but he couldn't understand anything they said. But Mother Mary knew it was a special gift when the Great Spirit was born. That's how it became the December stone. The sun's out. We're going to show you guys what we mined out today. So we're going to go ahead and shut this mixer off, and I'm going to clean the muck out of it, some of it, and then we'll rinse it just to clean it up a little bit. There's all the chocolate syrup from the pit. This has actually got a lot of different good healthy minerals in it, believe it or not. Of course you wouldn't want to eat it, but it's really good for your skin because of the clay and the other minerals in the ground as far as the iron and the copper. So it is really good minerals. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab this hose. I'm going to rinse this up a little bit. Kind of try to clean some of the snot off the rock, I guess you could say. Sounds good if you can hear that. When you hear that sound, you can hear that clicking in there. That's a good sound, bro. You'll remember that we also mined out a full 5-gallon bucket of turquoise today, and as I was telling you, the good stone will decipher the bad stones. So what it's pretty much done here is eat up anything that's soft and what most people would stabilize. Go ahead and clean this out again. Try to get it a little bit clean before we run it through the screen. Dump all the rock and particles out that are nasty and soft. Sounds good. If it sounds like marbles, it's got to be good. Go ahead, do this once more. Then I'll go ahead and take the stone out. A little bit thinner. It don't look like pudding no more. Alrighty, now I'll get around here in the front. So we're not going to have a very good visual. Maybe I can get Michael to get a hand on the other side of the bucket. You know, it's surprising. It looks like turquoise. Imagine that. Alrighty, and take a little water to it. It'll help it run out, kind of like concrete. Looks like some pretty stone. Go ahead and dump this back up. Okay, so now what I like to do is I like using a 3/8 screen, or not 3/8 but 3/16 inch screen. Anything that goes through this screen is what we either call inlay material or facet material. So then we're able to take this stone and get it faceted on anything that goes through here. Still got a lot of fine particles. It's always good to screen it, that way there you get to see what you got. And the greens that actually come out of the ground sometimes is just your iron coating the turquoise, and a lot of that green color will come out. But a lot of the stone like this here, as you can see, this isn't a good stone. This is actually going to be chalky leverite, so we know that that stone there is not good. It's not good quality. But the rest of this stone, if you look at it, you can hear the difference. And if you look at where the green still stayed on the stone, but if you hold this up towards the light also, it's also going to be translucent because of the high silica content in the turquoise. So it looks like, although we may have only got not quite a quarter of a bucket, I'm going to guesstimate at about 10 pounds of stone out of approximately 45 pounds. That's not a lot. So a lot of time goes into mining and collecting the stone, and a lot of waste goes out as well. So you may get a 5-gallon bucket, but once it's tumbled, you're going to find out what's gem quality and what isn't gem quality. So this looks like a pretty good batch, just the same. Still could use some more tumbling. It's still got matrix on it, but a lot of people like the matrix, and when you cut it, it's actually really beautiful. Once I'm done cleaning this up a little bit, we'll take this inside and we'll see if we can't make something. I'll show you the difference in the hardness of quartz and the turquoise. So what we have here is a Lincoln County quartz crystal. It's a smoky quartz crystal. We all know that quartz is a 7 hardness. So what we do for a demo test, even at the show, this is a piece of our seafoam. Most turquoise on the market today is incredibly soft. That's why they stabilize it. So if you take the quartz crystal and you take the seafoam, it should be tearing the seafoam completely apart. And if you listen to it, you can actually hear what's going on. So what happens is you end up with a little bit of powder here on the seafoam. But if you take your finger and wipe it and you take a good look at it, you can actually see there's no scratches on there. But what has happened is you've actually polished the quartz crystal, which you can see where the seafoam actually ate the crystal to pieces. These are 2mm facet. So if you look at this, you can actually see on the stone, these are cut exactly like a diamond, which means these stones at a 2mm have 54 cuts on it, just like a diamond, which shows the extreme hardness and gem quality of the stone. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the mining crew here, which is the wife, my boy, and we're going to cut some of the stone. now we've got two of the stones that we've selected to cut, and because of the gem quality, you can see that the stone is actually highly silicated. So what I'm going to do is, where a lot of times I like to set in silver, but because of the special gem quality of this stone, we know that it's super hard, super high gem, and super silicated. So what we're going to do is use a 14 karat gold bezel on the stone. So we start by making the 14 karat gold bezel wrap around one of the stones. So we'll start in this area here by bending the gold. Now what I'm going to do is mark this with a Sharpie. So we'll mark that, and we'll take and cut this, and we'll take the second stone. We're going to do the same thing with it. We're just going to wrap it around the piece. So now we're about ready to do some solder here. You always want to make sure that your bezel's about as tight as you can possibly get it when you solder, and that everything's lining up real close. Then once you solder, you go ahead and really place it to the stone before you solder it to your silver, which I'll show you here in a minute. So there's one. That one's ready. Let's heat. Now what we want to do is take our gold solder and trim a little piece off from this. And we'll take and cut us a couple pieces of this here. We'll get a couple balls done up. What I like to do with my flame when I'm making jewelry is, you can see the blue, the really hot. I don't like really hot. So what I try to do is just get it to where it's a green flame and as little heat as possible to stay off the gold, so I don't melt the bezel, because it will melt very quickly and easily. So we'll go ahead and get these balled up. I'll go ahead, and what I like to do when I flux it is I like to heat it up a little bit, so that way there it doesn't bubble. And you can see it turning white on here. What that does actually when you're soldering is you're able to pick it up, and instead of having it bubble while you're dropping your balls down there of gold, you can actually just set it right on there and try to keep the heat to the opposite side of your bezel, and then you'll see your gold melting on there. Okay. What we're going to do now is go ahead and shape our stones back into the bezel. So this way here our bezel's pretty close to what we're going to be using for a size. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this out, and of course I do everything by hand, so what I'm going to end up doing here is actually polishing this down a little bit with a rough wheel at first, and then that way there, when I set it, I have very little cleanup when I'm finished on the silver. Okay. And what I like to do is I always like to keep a nice thick piece of metal around for silver. That way there, before I even set the stone, what I like to do is slap the bezel on top of there. See how tight it's fitting on a nice flat piece. If it looks pretty good, I'll go ahead and leave it. But if it needs a little fine tuning, I don't like to use a whole lot of solder. But I also like to make sure my pieces are straight. So most people don't do what I'm doing right now. To me, it's a lot easier, and if you need to add any, keep your wire handy, your solder. That way there, you can always add it. You can touch it a little bit like I just did on the last piece. This will actually make it a lot, I think it's a lot easier. Because in that way there, when it's heated up, it just all runs together. All the solder's already in there, so it's kind of my own little trick I think it works well. And then you can disperse it around with your pick. Okay, now we're going to take a break and then we'll be back at it.